sutures?
Sutures. Okay.
Get up close.
So sutures are
Look at the screen while you record.
Man, if y'all don't stay out there, I got this. Golly.
Cause you're gonna be able to hear it. You ready?
Get my country.
Good?
Yeah, we good.
All right. Sutures. Okay. Sutures, you can point to any of the squiggly lines that are on the skull here. Okay.
Then you have the temporal mandibular.
Temporal mandibular joint is here.
The atlanto-occipital.
Atlanto-occipital joint is here. Notice I pointed on the sides, not right here.
Atlanto-axial.
Right. The atlanto-axial joint is here. Once again, notice I pointed on the sides, not in the middle.
Intervertebral facet.
Intervertebral facet, you can point to any one of those flat, smooth surfaces on any one of these vertebrae.
Coastal vertebral.
Costovertebral joint. Okay, it can be indicated right here. And also right here.
The sternocostal.
Sternocostal joints are here and here.
The costochondral.
Costochondral joints are here, and on this side, here.
Okay, so those are the joints. And you want me to go to the sternum?
You're going to the whatever you like, whatever's next. All right,
Okay,
movements.
Move next.
All right, what do we have on there? Movements of what first?
Mandible.
All right, movements of the mandible. Okay, you're gonna have mandibular depression and elevation. You're gonna have mandibular protraction and retraction, or protrusion and retrusion. You're gonna have mandibular lateral deviation to the right, mandibular lateral deviation to the left. Rib cage, okay? Rib cage, you're gonna have rib cage elevation and then rib cage depression. All right, trunk or spinal column, okay? With the trunk, you're gonna have trunk flexion, trunk extension, trunk lateral flexion to the right, trunk lateral flexion to the left, trunk rotation to the right, trunk rotation to the left, and trunk circumduction.
The spinal column, that's what you just did.
Is that it?
Alright, the bony landmarks of the skull.
Cool.
Okay? What you got?
The external occipital
External occipital protuberance.
occipital condyles.
These are your occipital condyles.
Mastoid process.
This is the mastoid process of the temporal bone.
Mandibular fossa of the temporal bone.
Mandibular fossa of the temporal bone.
The styloid process of the temporal bone.
Styloid process of the temporal bone.
The zygomatic arch.
Zygomatic arch.
The basilar area.
Basilar area. Basilar area is here.
The foramen magnum.
Foramen magnum is this hole here.
External auditory meatus.
External auditory meatus.
Zygomatic process.
So this is the zygomatic process of the temporal bone.
The temporal process.
This is the temporal process of the zygomatic bone.
The greater ring of the sphenoid bone.
Now you can see it better from the inside of the skull, but I'm not requiring you guys to do that. But this is the greater wing of the sphenoid bone.
Okay, those are the landmarks of the skull. And the bony landmarks of the sternum is next.
Okay. You have the manubrium of the sternum, the body of the sternum, the xiphoid process of the sternum.
The bony landmarks of the mandible.
All right, so you have the mandibular coronoid process, the mandibular condyle, the mandibular neck, the mandibular notch, the mandibular ramus, the mandibular angle, the mandibular base, the mandibular body, and the submandibular fossa.
Okay. The bony landmarks of the rib.
So the rib, need you to zoom in a little close, okay?
It's about as good as it's gonna go.
Can we
So I
get
just
this,
come,
can you come closer?
I just
Okay.
come close like this.
So you have the anterior end of the rib, which is this portion of the rib here. Right? This is not the back of the rib, this is the front of the rib, okay? So this is the anterior of the rib here. Okay? Then you have the head of the rib. Right? This is the head of the rib here. Just like the head of any other bone, this is the head of the rib here. Got it? Right. Then you have the neck of the rib. Okay? This is going to be the neck of your rib right here. It's just going to be just below the head. Got it? Then you have the costal cartilage. Then you have the tubercle of the rib. You can point to any one of these bumps that are on the ribs. They're on both sides. Any one of those bumps are the tubercles. Did I leave anyone off? That was all of them?
That's all of them.
Okay, gotcha. What you got next?
The bony landmarks of the vertebrae.
Okay. Call them out for me, make sure.
The dens or odontoid process.
So this little nipple thing right here is your dens or your odontoid process.
Okay, the body.
All right. This is the body of the vertebrae. Point to any one of them. This thick portion is the body of the vertebrae.
Then the spinous process.
These are all spinous processes.
The transverse process.
These are the transverse processes that are coming out from the sides.
The faucets.
Facet's going to be any flat, smooth surface, so you can point to any one of them. They're a little easier to expose in the cervical region because it's kind of loosened up.
Invertebral disc.
Intervertebral disc. All right, intervertebral disc are going to be the individual discs that you see between the two vertebral bodies.
The lamina.
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 Okay. So your lamina is going to be, you might want to zoom in here. So this is your lamina if you're looking at this vertebrae. This is your lamina if you're looking at this vertebrae. This is your lamina if you're looking at this vertebrae.
Okay. The pedicle.
Pedicle. Okay. So your pedicle, if you're looking at this vertebrae, this is your pedicle. Here, this is your pedicle. Here, this is your pedicle.
Okay. The vertebra prominence.
Vertebral prominence, same thing as C7. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay. The neural arch.
Okay. Neural arch. When you indicate, it's going to be everything excluding the vertebral body. So all of this is considered the neural arch. Right? You have to literally visualize that there's like one of these. You can pull one out. If it's not part of the body, it's considered part of the neural arch.
Okay. The vertebral foramen.
Vertebral foramen is what the spinal cord is running down. So if I were able to stick this pin all the way down through, that's the vertebral foramen.
The vertebral notches.
Vertebral notches. Might want to zoom in a little bit. So this is a vertebral notch here. That's a vertebral notch. This is a vertebral notch. This is a vertebral notch, and so on. It's on both sides.
Intervertebral foramen.
Intervertebral foramen is the hole that goes across this way. That's why I just stuck that in. Just broke my nail.
Articular process.
All right, articular process. All right. Like I said, once again, they're easier to move in the cervical region, and then once you go down to the thoracic area. But those two bunny ear-looking structures, right here and here, are the articular processes.
Okay. I got you, bro.
Articular process, articular process. Okay, no, bro.
Oh, sorry.
Transverse foramen. Okay. Transverse foramen are the holes that are here in the cervical area, and they're on both sides. Okay.
Cool.
That was it.
Was it?
And the bones.
What bones?
They just list,
Call 'em out.
cranial.
Yeah. So they're divided up into cranial bones and facial bones. Okay. So we'll go over those. All right. This is your temporal bone here. This is your sphenoid bone here. These are your parietal bones here. This is your frontal bone here. This is your occipital bone here. All right, in terms of the facial bones, all right, you have your zygomatic bones here, your cheekbones. You have your maxillas here. Of course, this is your mandible. What else was missing? And this is your nasal bone here. What else you got?
And then you have the atlas.
Atlas and axis. Atlas is the same thing as C1, so this bone here. Axis is the same thing as C2, this bone here.
Cervical vertebrae.
Cervical vertebrae, you're gonna tell me the cervical vertebrae. When I say it to you, I'm gonna say, can you tell me where the cervical vertebrae start and stop? You're gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, based off the formula C7, T12, L5, S5, SY, SU1. So this is cervical vertebrae.
We're gonna say all that?
Huh? Say all what?
Say that out loud?
No, I just told you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is where the thoracic vertebrae start and stop. Okay? This is where the lumbar vertebrae start and stop. This is where your sacral vertebrae start and stop. And this is your coccygeal vertebrae.
And then the hyoid.
And this is your hyoid bone here, the one that's suspended here from the silent process of the temporal bone.
The costa or costa.
Costa are ribs, so you're literally just gonna tell me costa.
One second.
Okay? And the who?
Sternum.
And then of course this is
Can
your
you do
sternum.
the costa again?
Costa, just the ribs.
Okay.
And then the sternum, of course.
Sternum.
That's it. And then it's the muscles. That's it.
Alright. Good? Yes. Good? Good?